So we wanted to test the quality, or I guess pH and total dissolved solids of different bottled water and tap water, just to see what the difference really was. So we went out and got a whole bunch of different water bottles, and we have two testers, like I said, a pH tester and a total dissolved solid tester. We just calibrated them, so it all works. There's your pH calibrator, or pH tester, and your solids tester. So we're going to put them in the first cup of water here on the left hand side is actually tap water. We're located in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, so get to find out how good that is. You can't see it on the camera, but we have distilled water on the side to rinse it, rinse the machines each time we do another test. So here's your pH of the tap water. Alright, it seems to have settled around 7.71-ish. Seems to be the area that it's at here for pH. Now we'll switch out to the dissolved solids tester. You may not be able to see, you won't be able to see this on the camera near as well, but here, we'll read it.
This is about 170.
So 170 parts per million. Alright, let's move on to the Compliments, which is a local brand.
Natural spring water.
Natural spring water.
In Alberta, Canada.
Supposed to be from locally here in Alberta. Rinse it in distilled water. We'll see what this settles out at. Alright, it seems to be slowing down here now that we're getting to 7.97. Looks like it'll probably stop just below 8. It seems to be where we're settling at with the Compliments water for pH. Now we'll go back to the total dissolved solids.
This is reading at about 235.
So 235 parts per million on this Compliments spring water. Do the rinse. Now we're going to switch over to Real Canadian Natural Spring Water. Does it say where it's from?
It's also located in High River, Alberta.
From High River, Alberta. This one seems to be settling out at 8.02. So a little bit higher on the pH scale there. Of course, we're running with the current modern pop culture understanding that higher is better.
And this is reading at 237.
So 237 parts per million of total dissolved solids. And we'll do our rinse. Now switch over to Dasani.
Got a lot of bubbles in there.
Yeah, for some reason the Dasani is bubbled up, whereas the other ones didn't.
It's dropping.
So the Dasani is still going. It's 6.2. It's still dropping. It's about to hit 6. Below 6. Alright, so we let it have a little bit of time because it was just kept dropping here. But the Dasani ended up leveling out at 5.78, which is quite acidic for what we've seen in water so far. And in terms of total dissolved solids, we are sitting at
25.
25 parts per million. Alright, now we're going to switch over to Aquafina. Alright, so the Aquafina seems to be settling out around 6.3.
Let's see here. 1.
So it's got very little total dissolved solids. 1 or 2 parts per million. That's pretty close to distilled water. So I guess if we're talking filtration, that's filtered pretty thoroughly. going to switch over to Evian, also a natural spring. So it should have more stuff in it. And the Evian seems to be settling out around 7.25, so quite a bit higher than Dasani, a little bit higher than Aquafina.
It is reading at about 278 parts per million.
So 278 parts per million of soft solids. Again, natural spring water, makes sense. We got our Fiji water.
Fancy.
So the Fiji water settled out at about 7.52 in pH. It's also natural spring water from Fiji.
And this is reading 136.
136 parts per million. All right, now we're going to switch over to do Nestle Pure Life. So the Nestle Pure Life seems to be about 7.24 in pH scale.
And 71 parts per million.
So 71 parts per million dissolved solids. All right, now we're gonna go switch over to good old smart water. See if it really makes you smart. And that seems to be sitting at 7.26 on the pH scale. It's also sat open the longest, so it's probably, you know, with the carbon dioxide slowly dissolving into it, would be the worst in terms of how much it would have changed in the time that it sits, but it's still doing okay.
And it's reading at 25.
25 parts per million, so that's not too bad. All right, so based on what we learned here, well, we learned a few different things. Out of the major brands that you're going to find all over North America, Fiji did the best. Nestle Pure Life and Smart Water held their own, both with pHs of Fiji with 7.52, Nestle Pure Life with 7.24, and Smart Water at 7.26. Fiji had the most dissolved solids at 136. The others had 71 and 25. So they all had a relatively high pH without having too much total dissolved solids. That's in contrast to the Dasani and the Aquafina, which had a pH of Dasani at 5.78, which is very low with the total dissolved solids at 25. And the Aquafina at 6.3 total dissolved solids of 1 or 2. I wanted to comment that Aquafina was remarkably close to what distilled water is after it sits out for a little bit. It seems like the reverse osmosis process really just sucks everything out of the water. You're basically drinking distilled water. And then the Evian wasn't terrible. It had a pH of 7.25, but the total dissolved solids were really high to get there. You know, there's a lot of things in it that can make the pH higher, but at a 278, that's more than we saw in any other ones. So there's a lot of stuff in that water. And last but not least, the Canadian waters, they actually did very well. They were the highest in the pH. At the complements was at 7.97 with 235 parts per million. So there's a reasonable amount of stuff in it, but from a spring water, that's a little bit forgivable, but quite high in the pH. And the real Canadian was at 8.02. So very, very, very close, but definitely the highest in pH that we saw out of any of the waters. This one has a total dissolved solids of 237. Remarkably similar water. It makes me really wonder whether or not they're actually the same water from the same source, just branded differently. But of course, if you don't live around here, you're not going to probably be able to get that water. So out of your choices, I would say For us here, we'd probably want to maybe grab these, or the Fiji. But if you're not from around here, you might want to go with the Fiji, the Nestle Pure Life, or the Smart Water. Probably in that order is what I would recommend to go with, and that's what it seems like we figured out from this.
I think it's important to mention that the compliments and the Canadian water is actually the cheapest.
Yes, these are definitely the cheapest options for us as well.
I expected bad results for them, but they were actually really good. All right, I hope this helped you.